welcome to another one of our morning prayers. What we're doing at morning prayer at the moment is we're working our way through Advent, looking at the Christmas story and all the different characters that are involved. Over the last couple of morning prayers, we've looked at the person of Mary, about that initial reaction to when she was told she was going to give birth to Jesus, and then after she'd been told that and reacted, the way she said that she was the Lord's servant, and then she went to see her cousin Elizabeth, who was also pregnant at the time, with a baby who was going to be John the Baptist. We're going to get a bit more into Elizabeth today. But then the idea of Mary looking for that encouragement, that affirmation from Elizabeth, who gives her it, and Elizabeth's friendship and encouragement, giving Mary the foundation to go on and have the courage and the strength to carry Christ and eventually to give birth to him. A wonderful thing. So today what we're going to do is look a bit more at this story of John the Baptist. Elizabeth was Mary's cousin. She was pregnant at the same time that Mary was pregnant with Jesus, but Elizabeth was pregnant with a little boy who was going to be called John the Baptist. And this is the story of John the Baptist's birth and the kind of response to that. So this is Luke, and we're picking the story up at Luke chapter 1, verse 57, the birth of John the Baptist. When it was time for Elizabeth to have her baby, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbours and relatives heard that the Lord had shown her great mercy and shared her joy. On the 8th day, they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father, Zechariah. But his mother spoke up and said, "No, he is to be called John." They said to her, "There's no one among you, your relatives, who has that name." They made signs to his father to find out what he would like to name the child. He asked for a writing tablet, and to everyone's astonishment, he wrote his name is John. Immediately, his mouth was opened and his tongue loosed, and he began to speak, praising God. The neighbours were filled with awe, and throughout the hill country of Judea, people were talking about all these things. Everyone who heard this wondered about it. What then is this child going to be? For the Lord's hand was with him. And then what happens is John the Baptist's dad, Zechariah, says the most amazing praise, verses of praise. He says this: John's father Zechariah was filled with the Holy Spirit and prophesied. Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he's come to and redeemed his people. He's raised up salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he said through his holy prophets of long ago. Salvation from our enemies, from the hands of all that hate us, to show mercy to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies, and enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days. And you, child, will be called a prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the Lord to prepare the way for him, to give his people knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of their sins, because the tender compassion of our God, by which the rising sun will come to us from heaven, to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. And Elizabeth's and Zechariah's child John grew up and became strong in spirit, and lived in the desert until he appeared publicly to Israel. So what's this story telling us? Well, one, it's interesting to get an idea of, you've got the core kind of story of Christmas, which is Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus being born. But actually there were people around that who were affected by that taking place. And this is another story of that. We've got Elizabeth and Zechariah. Elizabeth is Mary's cousin. They've got a little boy called John, but they are hugely affected by the fact that Christ is going to be born. And actually what's happening here is there's a preparation going on for themselves. What they know is that the baby that Mary is carrying is the one, is the chosen one, is the Messiah, the one that people need to follow. But what they also know is their son, John, he has a very specific role as well, which is calling people to follow Christ, preparing the way for Christ, getting people ready to meet with Christ. And what I learned from this is the idea of knowing your role, knowing what your job is a really crucial thing. Knowing what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. I think sometimes, too often as Christians, what we fall into is the trap of either wanting to be the celebrity or feeling utterly inadequate and worthless. We either want to be the people at the front that everybody listens to, or We don't feel that we've got anything to offer whatsoever. Often it feels like there's no real middle ground. Either you're a kind of a leader, a pastor, a preacher, or a vicar, or you're just someone who sits in the congregation. You just kind of, there's no kind of sense of a role in the middle. But the truth is, all of us have the role that John the Baptist had. What John the Baptist is exempling is, you have been called to make ready and make the way for Christ. Christ is here. People need to know it, and our role is like John the Baptist's. And it's an amazingly important role. It's an honoured role. You will be called the prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the Lord to prepare the way. That is the calling for you and I. So today, I want to call you that. You are a prophet of the Most High, for you have been called to prepare the way of the Lord. Do not think that you have nothing to offer. Don't think that you can't do anything. Don't think that if you're not a vicar or anything like that, as if somehow I have a greater calling than you. I do not, because actually our calling is exactly the same. Wherever we are, whoever we're surrounded with, whatever lives we live, what we do in our daily life, our family and our friends and our work life and all that type of thing, the call is the same. We have been called to make the way for Christ. Look at the story of John the Baptist. Even from his birth, that was his role, and so it is with you and I. We are not Christ. We are called to follow him and imitate him, but we are not the ones that people need to follow, just as John the Baptist wasn't. We are all John the Baptists. Christ is on his way, and our role is to make people ready to meet with him. Prepare the way for the Lord. That is the calling for you and me. Let's say the Lord's Prayer to finish. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. You guys take care of yourselves, and I will see you again very soon. God bless.